I'm one of the board members of Hub88. I just wanted to do a quick welcome, and I'll pass it on to Lori Swanson, who's running some of our programming and has helped set this Tech Talk up, and she'll talk more about our Tech Talks. But we've had them for several months now, and if anybody has any ideas for suggestions for technology ideas or potential speakers, let us know. But first of all, just a couple of updates. Hub88 is a not-for-profit technology accelerator here in the western suburbs. We've been here for about a year now. Got together about a year ago with just a few people. We've grown to have a community now of over 400 people that have come to different events and part of our either advisory boards or just part of the interest group. So we're starting to have an impact and getting a lot of recognition in the area. We're still coming on our own to building our vision to having a big, better economic impact on the area and help prepare our workforce for technology implementation. So just a couple of quick things. Hopefully you can pay attention to our website. Hopefully you signed in. If you didn't sign in, there's a sheet on the outside. We want to keep in contact with you and let you know about future events. I also want to thank Nokia for helping as a sponsor of Hub88, giving us access to their space. And a couple of other sponsors. We have Ice Miller as a legal firm, and West Suburban Angels are also sponsors of Hub88 so far. So we'll be looking for other sponsorships as well if you're interested. A couple of announcements. As of April 1st, we will have an official membership offering. We'll have a basic membership. We're going to focus on some things that we have a lot of strengths with, we built with our community. One is sort of business coaching. So we'll have some business coaching available, startup companies or maybe more established companies that want some advice. There'll be a membership available that you can join and come in and have weekly sessions, hourly sessions, phone sessions, just talk to the different mentors that we've accumulated both on the business side, but also on the technical side. As a technology center, we've tried to bring the assets together of all the people that we have, this big talent pool in the western suburbs of technology, science, and innovation that is prevalent in this area, and that's one reason we're here. So we have a business coaching kind of basic membership, and then one thing that Matt O'Sullivan announced last Tech Talk, we're now firming up for April 1st, is our communications lab. So this communications lab membership will allow companies to come in and work and prototype and test their product development in a pre-5G and near 5G as it rolls out environment, both with an indoor lab as well as an outdoor lab. So it's a very unique offering for the Midwest, and we're very excited about it. So we'll be taking memberships and bringing in companies that'll come with a lot of expertise that we'll have as part of our service offering. One other announcement, we're putting together some summer camps for kids, 6th to 12th grade. We'll have the announcements, a little bit more details in the next couple of weeks. We had a prototyping camp last summer. It went really well. We've got some really innovative ways of kind of exposing our kids to some technology and implementation of technology fun activities. So some coding, some robotics, some digital music, kind of all integrated together in a pretty exciting format. So you'll hear more about that, but if you have any kids that are interested, we'll pay attention, and we'll have that out soon. So I'll now pass it off to Lori, and she can go forward with the rest of the program. Thank you.
Thanks, Bill. Hi, everyone. Hopefully you can hear me. Welcome, welcome. My name is Lori Swanson. I am in charge of programming for Hub88. So if you have an idea for a topic, if you know great speakers that are related to emerging tech, find me. I'll be over there take my card. You can email me. We're curating a big list of thoughts, ideas, and we definitely want to hear from you on what's important. What do you want to learn about? That's the coolest thing ever about Hub88 is this emerging tech and just being able to, look forward and see what's possible. So today, for our March Tech Talk, I have the privilege and honor of introducing Jim MacLeenan. So I went into my notes, and Jim and I had our very first conversation April 8th, 1993. So 26 years anniversary. So I was an IT recruiter. He was an IT consultant. I was looking to help a client fill a job. I still am an IT recruiter. And he wasn't quite on the job search yet. But we have, and in fact, I've never placed him in a job, but I've helped build his teams at Tenneco and now at IDEX over the years. And the thing about Jim, I would say, if I had to, 3 words, one would be generous. So as a recruiter, this is a tip for all you out there who aren't sure if you should take a recruiter call. He always takes my calls. We talk. I learn about what he's doing, and it's just he shares. As a recruiter, I'm learning more about how to be better at my trade because he was able to share his career and what he's doing with me. So I love that about him. He's also super smart. He pursued. He's always been someone who's an avid learner. Got his MBA, and of course talked to a recruiter. That's super smart. And then finally, forward thinking. So I remember the first time that I saw a post. So he's a writer. He does a lot of things on LinkedIn. Just articles and that he's had published. He's actually close to finishing a book. So hopefully we'll be seeing that next time he shows up here, very close, right?
Hope so.
And hopefully. But I remember seeing a post on IoT and digital strategy or something several years ago, and I thought, what the heck is Jim into now? Like, what is this? Of course, I didn't even pronounce it right. I was like, what? Yot? What? Yot. And so, in any case, but because he's, always been sort of, curious and wanting to figure out what's next on the landscape for IoT, and he's deep, heavy into manufacturing. It's all been manufacturing in his career, pretty much. And so that's why we're really honored and privileged. And please welcome Jim MacLeenan to talk about IoT and what his company IDEX, which is about $1 billion manufacturer of highly engineered products, more than $1 billion. It was only $700 million when I first started working with them.
Wow.
So they're crazy, you're growing. But acquisition and organic, I think.
That's what we do.
So, yeah. But anyway, so please welcome Jim MacLeenan.
All right. That was funny. That was so nice. I've never had such a nice and a long introduction, but it was okay. So thank you very much for that, Lori. And thanks to you folks for your time today. I want to take some of that time to talk about how we at IDEX Corporation, have introduced the idea of the Internet of Things, or IoT, to this industrial manufacturing company. I use the term, you see it up on the screen a lot, smart connected products. This comes from Michael Porter. He of Porter's 5 Forces. He writes for the Harvard Business Review, and he's written a lot over the years about the impact of technology on business. And he was writing here about the fact that IoT is a big transformational impact on the product side of the business. And so we've taken that term because at IDEX, I'm only talking up here about adding information as a new and differentiating feature to your products. I'm not talking about using it as something on your manufacturing floor. That's a really cool thing to do. That's a great way to learn about IoT, but I'm really talking about adding it to our products. And then when we talk to our business units, we use this 5-step framework that I'm going to be showing a lot because it can be a daunting conversation, it can be a complex conversation, and the big question is, where do you start? And so this framework helps us figure out, there's probably one area that you're thinking about. If you have this cool idea that's giving you pause, it's going to be one of these. And it's a simple framework. The first is the device. I don't know specifically if it's going to be a new device or it's going to be something I'm going to retrofit from my existing product line. Some of my business units will say, no, I know the device. but I've never done sensors or electronics. That's completely new to us. We just have devices out in the field. Other folks will say, no, we already have electronics and sensors, but I've never done this communications thing. How do I send data up to the cloud? And still others will say, no, actually, it's no big deal. We're in doctors' offices. We're in Starbucks. No big deal. I can just get on the Wi-Fi. But I don't know how to manage data up, and I don't understand how to actually do cloud databases. And finally, and quite frankly, the most common issue that really seizes people up is, hey, now that I have all this data up in the cloud, what will I do with it? How do I come up with a product that actually generates or creates value for my customers? And so we use this framework to help target our conversation. And what I want to talk about today is use IDEX and stories about what we've been doing over the past 4 years to help illustrate how to apply all those different frameworks. In the beginning, I'm going to use the why, how, what framework for the talk, right? So in the beginning, I'll talk about the why. Here I'm saying, why do we approach it this way? Because you may not understand why we do it, but you have to understand the nature of IDEX. And so I'll spend some time describing IDEX and what an interesting place it is and what we do to put everything else in context. Then I'll talk about specific stories about how we've looked at devices and how we've looked at sensors and communications. And really at the end, as you can already tell, I'm a guy with a lot of slides. I speak in pictures, but I'm going to summarize 5 simple ideas that y'all can take back to your businesses and help tee up the conversation there. So 5 simple ideas, that's what I'll leave you with. Now, if you do see something up on the screen that you like, there's a couple of slides that they always generate questions, and I don't spend a lot of time explaining them. But if you go to this website, don'tthinksomuch.com, we did it that way because you don't have to write that one down. You'll remember it. There's a link there. There's a couple links to point to some of my stuff that I've published before that explains the slides in a little bit more detail. But let's dive in and let's talk a little bit about IDEX. Who is this company that I work for? And I draw this framework, by the way, in a very specific way. It's supposed to look like a stack of Lego blocks because it is not my goal to define specifically for all my business units exactly how to do this every step of the way. It has to be sort of plug and play compatible. It has to be very flexible because of the way IDEX is structured and because of one of our core philosophies and how we run the company. So what is IDEX? This one I have to take a breath for. IDEX is a global, diversified industrial manufacturer. 15 syllables. That's a pain. Basically, we make things. We make a lot of different kinds of things. That's kind of why we're interested in the Internet of Things. But we have a lot of different products represented by, and we like to say that it's true, our products truly do improve people's lives. They have a significant impact on people. For example, we are a fairly big player in the area of fire and safety. So we make a lot of products that are in, on, and around a fire truck. If you look at a fire truck, about 60% of the value of that truck is manufactured by IDEX companies. We make the pumps and the valves and the meters and the big, water cannons on top. Those are cool as heck to go see those things demo. But we also make the rescue tools to help the firefighters lift big slabs of concrete and cut open cars and stuff like that. We also have products in the health and safety industry. You've heard of DNA machines that sample your DNA for $1,000 and fit inside the size of a suitcase. Well, we're the folks that make the components of those machines small enough to fit inside the size of a suitcase. And then, of course, we're industrial, so we make pumps and valves and meters, but they go into a lot of really important processes. We sell to food processors and pharmaceutical companies and agriculture businesses. We do a lot of stuff that's kind of hidden underneath the streets. You don't see our products very much, but they're really critical and they have a huge impact on people's lives. Lori, the company is $2.5 billion. We're a global company, public, so we're Fortune 1000. We are about half of our revenue comes from ex-US, and we are made up, as Lori said, you got it exactly right. Our sort of our stated goal to the street is half of our growth comes from organic, and the other half comes from acquisition. We are a serial acquirer. That's hard to say. And we have, and you can see a progression in our brand names here. The ones that look the same, they're the older companies. We are very much in the habit now of buying great companies. We only buy first or second in their markets. They have big share, but in our market, they're very niche little products in niche little markets. The market leaders have maybe 30% share. This is very fragmented markets. Those are great little businesses that we like to buy. And we have 50 or 60, depending on how you count, 50 or 60 different business units, right? So on average, you're looking at, do the math, on average, you're looking at companies that are about $40 to $50 million in revenue globally. This diagram is the easiest way to describe it. So I've got different colors for different industries, oil and gas, energy, municipal, fire and safety. Here I've drawn the wedges, one per company, to just be average, but this is the true picture of IDEX. So obviously we've got some companies that are bigger than others. I got a couple of business units that are about $200, $300 million in revenue. So obviously I got a whole lot of little bitty ones as well. What this picture does not communicate very well is that it's a global company. As I said, about 50% of the revenue is ex-US, 50% of the headquarters are ex-US, but they all sort of sell globally. So as you can imagine, and actually the way it's drawn with that little bitty circle in the middle, that's exactly how we like it. We like a very small corporate presence. We are highly decentralized. Because if you think about it, it is impossible for us to truly understand all these customers and all these markets from our nice, comfortable offices in Lake Forest. It's not possible. We can't do it. In fact, we decentralize and give a lot of decision-making power to our businesses because they're the ones that truly understand our customers. And every time somebody talks about centralizing something, we pretty much aggressively shoot that down. Because, you know, it's always around, hey, let's save some money. Let's like aggregate some things. But the amount of money we're saving is peanuts compared to the amount of top line we're getting because our businesses truly, truly understand their customers. And so that's the environment that I work in. So I'm the CIO. I'm the Chief Information Officer for the company. And corporate IT provides a rack of services for the business units, but they are primarily responsible for their own IT. That's great for me because it allows me to have some free time, to talk to them about introducing a lot of innovation and using digital concepts to help drive their business. And that's why we're in the business of talking about IoT with them. And as I can say, a lot of different kind of products, a lot of different types of applications, and it's very difficult for any one sort of idea to sort of work for everybody. And so hence, that's the way we have to approach introducing new ideas like IoT. And so the one simple idea that you want to take from this section of the presentation is as I'm laying out all these different pieces of the framework, is you have to understand the culture and the makeup of the business and how it is structured before you introduce a new idea, a really innovative idea. We can't come at the company saying everybody has to do the same thing. We're going to centralize. It just would not work with the culture. It's got nothing to do with the fact that industrial doesn't like technology. It is how we exceed our expectations and deliver for the street. It's a proven success. Look at our stock price. It's going very, very nicely. We're top quartile in our different sort of comparative, what do you call it? And so we're doing fairly well, and so we can't mess with that. That was a part of the presentation I hadn't practiced, right? Okay, next topic. And the next topic is like what I like to call shiny things. And when you talk about IoT and let's look at adding sensors and stuff, this is the bottom two sections of this framework, picking devices, but more, I'm going to put some smarts on it. I'm going to put some electronics and some blinking lights and some communications and some data. And this is where the engineers really get excited because this is fun. I'm going to go buy a Raspberry Pi and slap it on the outside of these things and wire it with sensors. But that's okay. That's a good thing to sort of encourage. We really do encourage it. In fact, there's no one way to do it. You can tell by looking at the different kind of products we make. Up in the upper left is the blue pump that has no electronics at all. It's totally operated by the oil going through it type thing. There's no electronics at all. So they have a really tough road to hoe because they got to figure out how to add something that doesn't exist. Versus the little robot crawler down in the lower left, obviously that thing's loaded with electronics. They're going to have a different problem. But it's different conversations with every single one of these different business units. And to help them understand kind of these building blocks of IoT, we came up with an interesting and simple way to show them. And it was, we were looking for a simple idea to show what the components of IoT are. And so we built these. Whoops. Sorry. Here, I've got one live. So it's a blinky thing. Obviously, a really cool, shiny object, right? It's loaded with technology, tons of fun. And you show this to the engineers and they love it. They just love it. This is an Arduino board inside, and with this thing, I can illustrate the 5 steps of the framework, so you can understand as you're trying to understand how to put it on your products. The tin is the device. Down here, I've got the sensors. Up here, I've got the communications. It's a little GSM chip, and then I can upload things up to the web, and I've got a database and a portal. This is fun to play with. This is, we call it a very simple way to illustrate IoT that all fits inside an Altoids tin. So a simple thing that fits inside of a tin, we call these things simple tins. So I have simple tins working in the corporate IT department at IDEX, and everybody laughs. Sorry, corny. The device, the data goes up to the cloud, and we can actually see it, and so you can see the entire loop. Here's the sensors, here's the source code, here's the firmware, here's the connection, here's the data, here's the presentation. I see the loop. That loop is very, very important for the product engineers to see and understand, because they have to understand, the various pieces that they can do and what they can't do. And it was purpose-built to illustrate these different components of the 5-step framework. That simpletons really were the thing that helped us force the conversations about, this is what you need to understand. I can't centralize this electronics. I can't centralize the communications because it's too different. It's too unique. But especially the electronics and the sensors, quite frankly, that is the easiest part of this piece of the puzzle for the engineers to take on, because most engineers in these different business units have that capability. They understand I'm adding elements, I'm adding cogs, right? I'm adding cost of goods. And so they know how to spec this stuff, and they know how to get it into their manufacturing process. So that's a kind of a small leap. So the one simple idea, or the one simple thought around these first 2 pieces of the framework, is that for most engineering or product development folks, this physical sensor nature of things, no matter what they say, it's a fairly small leap for the product teams to take on. They understand it. It's a small extension of what they already know. Versus the next one, which is a much more of a big leap, and it's that communications link, right? The next step in the process is, now that I have all the data on board and I'm collecting it with these sensors, how do I send it up to the internet? And for IDEX as a whole, this is a very difficult thing, because all these different products have completely different use cases. I've got some products that are out in a farmer's field. I've got some products that are down underneath the sewer in pipes. I've got some products that are in dentist's office. That one's easy. And I've got some products like the stuff on fire trucks that is running around a city. And a lot of folks that I talk to say, communication's not that big of a deal, but it actually is, because it's changing. Think of the folks that do anything municipal. I'm a product developer. I've got to pick a single communication standard for any and all municipalities. And depending on what city you talk to, they're going to go this standard versus that standard. Mesh is coming in. And so we really work with the different businesses and get them to understand this is something that it's a moving target that is very hard to standardize on, and we can't standardize on across all of IDEX. Phil was talking to me at the beginning or before the presentation about this communication lab that Hub88 is sponsoring, and that's going to be super, super powerful, because even now, it's been 4 or 5 years, and the communications piece is very much a moving target. This is one picture of one of the more interesting and difficult examples of a communication link we had to solve. The idea here is this company is in Europe, and they sell a product that helps me clean out a sewer. So if I'm going to clean out a sewer, I take a hose and I stuff it down there, and I pull it back, and I spray all the dirty stuff out, and then I pull the hose out. Then I got to put a camera down there to find out if I got everything. So I pull it through, and if I found I missed something, I pull that out and I stuff the hose back in. And so the big idea that we had was, why don't we just put a camera at the end of the nozzle and I stuff it in and pull it out one shot? Makes total sense, but it was a very, very difficult engineering problem. They've already tried to wrap a wire around the hose and hardwire it. Didn't work. The wire just gets fried all the time. And so they did it wirelessly. And that's a horrible, I'm sure the engineers in the audience will get this, that's a horribly tough problem because, we cannot go to pipes smaller than 12 inches. The signal won't go very far. But they figured out how to get the signal, even in a 12-inch pipe, to go 50 meters, which is roughly the distance between two different manholes, and so that works. And it's a really interesting thing they had to do with little receivers and going down. I've actually seen it in person. It's a rough demo because you have to go outside and it's kind of cold and you're sitting around a sewer and they're dumping. It's okay. But it's just a perfect example of a very specific communication problem that is very specific to one of our businesses. I have 49 others just like it. Everybody's got crazy little problems. And so this piece of the 5-step framework, the one simple idea that you need to remember is it is very much a moving target. The communications piece is still a moving target. And any work that gets done to help sort of standardize that or make that a very accessible thing for a business unit or a business, that's going to be, technically speaking, that's going to be the most impactful stuff you can work on. Now, we've been doing this for a couple of years, and we're definitely seeing a pattern that in these 5 steps, these first 3 steps are things that very much belongs at the business unit. It's going to be very specific to the products that we manufacture, their use cases, where they're at. But these next 2, the data and how I store data in the cloud, and also the products that I create off of those are things that we are actually thinking about centralizing. We are actually thinking about, especially on the data side, there's only so many ways to build a database for telemetry. Why do we have to keep reinventing that wheel? And so we're working on things in these 2 areas that are actually things that could be centralized. And the interesting thing about these, for both of these boxes, I'm talking about something special. For the data, everybody gets excited about the cloud. Ooh, everybody knows what the cloud is, and they like to talk about that in their product pitches. And when I talk about products that solve problems with data, people start talking about artificial intelligence. And the product folks that talk about that know enough to be dangerous, right? They understand, generally speaking, how it's going to fit into a product solution, but they don't really understand it. It's magic to them, and that is a great opportunity. I give this presentation to IT people, and I say this is a great opportunity to get into something to become part of these conversations in your business. So, for example, the data piece. How do I manage telemetry data up in the cloud? If you think about it, the data model is going to be the same for any one of my business units. So I've got products, devices, sensors, and readings. That's it. Maybe some little attributes on the side, but that's it, and it's the same for everybody. And so what we've done in IDEX, so here's another specific IDEX story, we've actually built a standard solution to help all of our business units. Now, most product designers, when they think of the problem, they think it's fairly straightforward. I got an IoT device. I'm going to send data up to a cloud database, and I'm going to sit there and write applications that run off of it. That's really simplistic, right? And to be fair, some of the engineers have experience in SQL databases, and they sort of understand at the end of the day, it's going to end up in something that has a SQL database in it, and I'm going to write some queries, select star from customer where state equals Illinois, and I'll write some applications. And by the way, all these diagrams here, they're completely platform agnostic. There's nothing specific about any of this stuff. But even this is too simplistic. This client-server style architecture will not really take advantage of what the cloud offers. This is actually the technical architecture that's going to work, and this is what we've actually built at IDEX. We built a standard set of technologies that go together and solve the problem. We take streaming data from the field that comes in JSON format. We mix that in with data from our ERP systems, our CRM systems. We run it through, I forget the actual name, but the database folks it's like an ETL process, right? Transfer and load. So we transfer that, and it does end up in an SQL database. If the transaction volume is too high, we'll put it in a document DB database. And then at the end of the day, I can start writing my applications. And we do everything with secure APIs. So we've solved the security problem, we've solved the data structure problem, we've solved the scaling problem, and all of that stuff is now sort of simplified for the product designers and the product team. They only talk about this, we call it a container. I know it's not strictly speaking Kubernetes or Docker or anything like that, but we call it a container, and that's all they need to worry about. They don't need to worry about all the detailed technology inside. That's been sort of abstracted away from them. And that helps because they've got plenty of stuff to do. They need to figure out their dev, test, and prod strategy. We've got some customers that insist that their data is physically separated from their competitors. And obviously, since we're global, we have to have the flexibility to put these things in any country that we need to. Depending on the country, they may insist. All of these different instances, all of these different containers have the exact same code in them. We've scripted everything. So every time we come up with a new feature, everything gets hit with the script, and everybody gets all the cool stuff new for free. And it frees up the product teams to just focus on how they're going to use it to develop this piece of their solution. It's been a really impactful way. We go to the business units, we tell them about this, we help them understand that we've just solved about 20% of the work, the technical work for you. You don't have to worry about that because they never think of the security issues, they never think of the international issues, and we've solved that for them. It's been a great and a very impactful way to take part in the IoT process. And really, it's only evolutionary technology. Cloud and cloud architecture is not there's some new ideas, but if you got a good basic understanding in client server and databases, a few new things that you need to learn, and you're off to the races. And those teams can be a very big part of the process. Now, I think I said this before, when the businesses start talking about products that create value, typically in industrial, they're talking about predictive maintenance. It's not preventative maintenance. It's not change the oil every 2,000 miles. It's I'm only going to change the oil in the engine when it needs it. However, save a lot of money. However, I will know when it's going to fail. And so before it fails, I'll be Johnny on the spot and fix it. So predictive maintenance. And it's a classic example of, I'm going to use this buzzword, artificial intelligence, but I really don't understand what it means, or at least how to do it. And when we get to execution planning, they don't quite know where to start. And so this story is another IDEX story where one of my IT directors in one of my business units, right? He's a database hack. He's got some interest. He's self-directed. And he spent 2 weeks solving this problem. Strictly speaking, I think it was 3.5 weeks, but the story goes better when he does it in 2 weeks. But it's nights and weekends, and he invested his own time. And the first week, he went out and picked a platform. They're all the same. Once again, they're all the same. They all can do this, the big three. But he picked a platform and got a free user ID and went through the videos and went through tutorials, kind of learned the process on how to build a machine learning model, right? And then the next weekend, since he knew his data, he went through this little experiment. He downloaded a lot of information, maybe 1,000 orders, and a lot of interesting information about these orders. How complex they were, who took the order, what time of year was it made, where was it shipped to. Even downloaded in the model, was it monetized in UK pound sterling or euros or US dollars. And then he downloaded one last column, which is the thing he wanted to predict. Did this order generate a warranty claim? Yes or no? Simple yes or no question. And using what he learned the previous week, he built a machine learning model that correctly predicted whether or not a new order would generate a warranty claim 90 to 95% of the time. 2 weeks of effort. Now, he did not become a data scientist in 2 weeks. This is not possible. He's using, examples and stuff like that. But what he learned and what he was able to teach a lot of the rest of us in IT was this is the kind of data that you need to build machine learning models, and these are the kind of questions you can ask and the kind of answers you can expect. And that last piece is extremely valuable in understanding when you're having a product conversation with the product managers or the customers. These are the kind of questions we can help you ask and answer. Super, super valuable. So the simple idea here is for teams to run to the magic. The stuff that people think is magic, especially on the technology side, it's really, for the most part, evolutionary, not revolutionary. Be the person inside your organization that knows how to answer those questions. You'll absolutely be part of the process of digitizing your products. Last section, this is value. And like I said before, when I get to the top of the framework, after all is said and done, the engineers are happy, but this is the part that a lot of my businesses always have the toughest time. Now that I have all the data, how am I going to manufacture some value? And there's a couple of different ways that we've come up with at IDEX to help our business units understand how that value will be manufactured. This is another one of those. This is one of those eye chart slides, and I'm not going to go through in gory detail. There's a link that explains it a little bit more on the website. But it's a very simple way to help target where the value is. How it works is this. The rows are the different functions that an IoT product can do. This is straight out of Michael Porter, right? High level, these are the kind of things that an IoT product can do. It can monitor and can, automatically operate, things like that. The columns are where the real value is. The columns represent your value chain. So the manufacturing and product management through your distribution channel or dealers. Now, I'm an industrial manufacturer, so the vast majority of my products go through fairly interesting and complex distribution channels to finally get out to the end customer. I do this for real for some of my business units, and this number of rows, a number of columns in the value chain gets pretty big. But once I map that out and talk about the different functions we can add to our products, then it's really just a simple exercise of going to each cell and figuring out, in this intersection, here's a use case, and where is the value? Who's going to get the value, and is it big or small? And it is really helpful to help you laser in on where do you think is the place that you want to experiment with, that you want to laser on, that's going to generate the most value or going to generate enough value to validate an experiment. Okay? Excuse me. The other thing we do is we help our business units understand how to illustrate these ideas for value to their potential customers. Because until you really see something on the screen, sometimes it's very hard for these folks to understand what we're doing. And there are two stories here. This one's about 3-4 years old. And this is a cool story because I can tell you what this product is. This is actually, the thing that evolved from this is actually on the market. It was for fire trucks. So we are the company that put fire trucks and ambulances on the internet. But 3 years ago, it was just a glimmer in someone's eye, and had some cool ideas. And so we helped them. So we built that thing. It's just a proof of concept application. It took about a month. I'm talking about a month of calendar time, not a month of effort time. And about half the data there is real. About half the data is completely made up. But we knew we could get it. We just didn't have those kind of sensors. But we knew it was possible. And so we built something that would, a mock-up that would say, this is what stuff would look like in real life. Then we took it on a trade show floor. Coolest trade show if you ever want to go to is the fire industry. Big old fire trucks. It's cool as heck. Big Tonka trucks. But we took it on the trade show floor and we showed customers, and it was really interesting. It was very, very consistent. They loved this idea. I can't believe no one's done this in the industry. You're the first. This is going to be really valuable to us. Now that I'm looking at it, that little piece, it's not that big of a deal, but if you added this, it'd be really cool. And so we got a lot of great voice of the customer. It really helped the customers understand where we were trying to go, because this was new to the industry, and it helped justify some of the investment we had to make this happen. Similar story. This one, you can't really tell what the product is, because this is an example of a product that's not actually available yet. And so I had to mask what's going on. But I can tell you the use case fairly simply has to do with a device. And this is out in the field somewhere, and it has an operator of some sort. And the use case is, before the operator wants to use this device, it would be nice to know if it's going to work, if it's ready to go. And so we said, well, just treat it kind of like your Fitbit, right? You use your cell phone. The operator could use their cell phone and do a Bluetooth connection, get some readings, make sure everything's copacetic. And oh, by the way, since they're using their phone to figure out what's going on, we'll just send the data up into our cloud. That was our big idea. And so again, we took about 30 days. Once again, calendar time, not effort time. This one is maybe 10 or 15% real and 85% made up. Once again, we knew we could get all the data, but we just did the bare minimum. The IT folks thought it was great. They're writing mobile apps. And we used it to illustrate to potential customers, hey, here's this great idea we have. And I was actually able to go to one or two of these voice of the customer sessions. It was really interesting. It was the same thing. We almost got universal, consistent reaction from all of our customers. They hated this idea. They couldn't stand it. They thought, it was a fairly consistent reason why they didn't like it, because they expected all the operators to say, well, if I'm going to be sending all this data up, I want the company to pay for my smartphone. And so, okay, so we had to go back to the drawing board. But it was still a very, very valuable, it was a success, because instead of spending a lot of time trying to solve a problem that no one would want to buy, we were teaching product marketers how to do proof of concepts and MVPs to be able to get a really good voice of the customer without really, freaking them out, or I'm sorry, without wasting a lot of money. The story of the sewer pipe cleaner is another one. It was really cool. This is in, we were really trying, it was a new idea, even though it seems to make total sense. What really helped sell it was pictures of the videos as they were going through. And it's an expensive product, but in Europe, it's very European-based. In the States, if you have problems in your sewer pipes, the fines are in the tens of thousands, or thousands, I'm sorry. And in Europe, your fines are in the hundreds of thousands. So it's a lot more prevalent problem in Europe, and so that's where we're solving it first. But it was a fun process to help them build an application that would help illustrate this value to the cities or the people that would want to know. And so we had what I like to call a whiteboard wireframe session, just sketching on a whiteboard. Hey, we can do this, and we can do this. Great fun. Bunch of people in a room. Then we built a traditional wireframe of how this works. And then we eventually built an application and it was, the idea here is not just for the operator running the thing. There's a screen on the outside of the truck. This is for the city or the municipality after the fact. They have a library of videos from all the different cleaning runs. It's a slightly simpler form of what do you call it, inspection. It's not enough to match what the government wants, but it's enough to know what's going on. And we allowed them to see, here's a video, and you could move along the video, and you can see you're going down. We could actually put a marker on a map to tell you exactly, well, pretty close to exactly in the street where you were. And so it was a very, very helpful thing when we took it to a trade show and showed it next to the nozzle. I mean, the nozzle that does this is pretty boring. It's just a big metal sled with one hole out the back and a camera out front. Not very exciting, but this is what really helped sell the idea. And so it was a relatively successful product. It was pretty cool. So the one simple idea here is use the one thing to again, if I'm pitching to IT, it's how you can really help the product teams understand how value is created, help them understand where the value is. Find ways to help them understand where the value is. The technical excitement is not going to do it. They have to figure out who's going to pay for it and how the customer is going to generate value. So that's it. So those are the 5 different steps in the framework. And yes, these are the 5 simple ideas that I can leave you with. And the first one, again, is culture. You have to understand the culture of the organization you're trying to introduce this innovation to, and figure out ways to not be so jarring and use their own terms to help them understand. Understand the sensors and the electronics, it's actually a small leap for most product teams. The engineers, that's going to be the easy part. But the tough one is going to be the communications. The communications world is still a moving target. It's interesting to say here in Nokia, and I know this is Communication Central, but based on different businesses in different areas of the world, it is very much a moving target. And run to the magic. When there's technology that your organizations kind of don't know how to sell or don't know how to explain, be the people that know how to explain it in terms that humans can understand, and you absolutely get pulled into the conversation, and it can help drive the conversation forward. And finally, run to the value. Figure out where is value being created. You have to figure out who's going to pay for this. We go from business models that say we're going to charge for the data, or we're going to make it up in price, or we're going to make it up in volume, or we're going to increase share. There's a number of different ways to do it, but you have to very quickly get to understanding where the value is. So that's it. So Lori mentioned this really quick. I am writing a book. It's not about IoT. It's actually a bigger topic. It's about digital transformation. And so when you go to the site and if you want to check out the different slides, if you're interested in finding out when the book actually comes out, it should be out in summer. I'd love it if you signed up for the mailing list. But that's all I have in terms of prepared slides. Any questions? I know we got some folks online too. I don't know if you can do that. But any questions? While you're thinking, go.
So have you ever done anything with embedded
for the
machine learning?
presentation? Appreciate it. Just wondering, are you seeing any of the business units that are starting to get some significant revenue from the new offerings that are being developed?
Yes and no. Yes, as a matter of fact, reasonably significant for them. It's starting to take off in the fire industry. We've got some folks that are doing almost catch-up work in their industry, and they're starting to see pickup there, but now they're trying to do leapfrog stuff. It's not yet transformative because in our businesses, the industries are very slow to change. A lot of our products are spec'd in. A lot of our products have to be burned in for 18 months before they're allowed to go into production, especially around natural gas and transfer type applications. So it is a bit of a slow process.
Hi, Jim. When the communication layer, accelerates, when this 5G and the faster speeds and lower latency takes effect, how will that impact the next layers up? Be more data, quicker data. Will the data layers be able to accommodate it?
Oh yeah. The volumes of data that I'm talking about in my applications, they're relatively small compared to what the cloud can handle and what communication can handle. There's about 40,000 fire stations in North America. I think there's 2,000 to 5,000 new trucks built every single year. Each truck, if all the different sensors on it were turned on and streaming data, it's very small volumes when you do the math. I think what the higher speed communications aren't necessarily going to increase a lot of utilization. They might. Some folks talk a lot about video, and if they want to get excited about video, then that might help. But just raw data, it's actually not that much. If you need data that generates a ton of volume, you've got latencies of 10 samples a second, and there's not a lot of applications that need that. The biggest thing that prevents fast uptake is defining what the value prop is.
So a question on applying the magic for the machine learning stuff.
Practical question. On the voice of the customer, do you find that you need a third party so that it's not self-fulfilling to actually get that voice of the customer, or do you guys just do it all in-house? And then another half of practical question, when you gather the data, do you just use like an Amazon micro servers, or do you spread every country in a different, for scalability, do you spread it all into different server farms?
Two different questions. So the first one, voice of the customer, we've been doing voice of the customer for all of our product development, not just the electronic stuff. So this is really a way to help them do what they already know how to do. And we got a pretty good, solid process for it. We've got engineers and product folks that understand the domain and go and to really just go talk to the customer. And it starts off with, what problems are you trying to solve? And that's why some of this stuff is slow on the uptake, because not many of the customers are asking for electronics and data. Our visualizations help them understand, we may have an idea. What does this make you think of? And that's generally the nature of how we do voice of the customer. So in our organization, how we do it, no, we're not leading the witness at all. In fact, more often than not, you're pivoting. The second question was, do I have to spread the data across different locations? No, not really. And once again, we don't have that level of transaction volumes yet. The flexibility we have in our sort of data platform is the ability to locate, a database wholly in a given region, right? And that's what the requirement is that we perceive is I need to have all my data in China. I need to have all my data in Germany. New Zealand, for some reason, wants data. Okay, whatever. But yeah, it's more that. It's not really the spreading across different things. And that one too, we just put a sort of a nice face and a bunch of scripts over a bunch of stuff that, I mean, if Amazon, Google, IBM, AWS, if they can do it, whichever one we picked, then yeah, we can do that. We're just on the back of whatever they do, all the magic they do. Did that answer your question? Excellent, good. Anybody else? Yes.
You said you're about $2.5 billion.
Yep.
How would you connect the idea of IoT to that number? Are you expecting IoT to impact all of it significantly, a small portion of it significantly, all of it in a little way?
Probably 50%. I personally see at least 50% could absolutely be my chief operating officer, my chief executive officer. They're like, well, maybe not so much. But I think eventually it all will be affected. It's the real question is, of all my businesses, which will be the ones that define the ecosystem of data? Our position in fire really puts us in a position to be the ones to aggregate all data around fire trucks and firefighters, just because of the nature of our products. But our pumps, out in oil fields, we are a small part of a really complicated system. And so we'll never be the kings of that one. Well, what they have to do is figure out how to plug into bigger ecosystems. And so it's not as much, I mean, it'll all get affected eventually. It's starting to accelerate in some, kind of scary, cool ways, but it's going to be in different ways, if that makes sense. Does that help? Okay. There's another one.
I think you touched on it a little bit, just answering that last question, but in your presentation you showed the pie of the different verticals that will benefit. And the 4 biggies were industrial, health sciences, fire and safety, and energy.
Yeah.
So my question to you is, where do you see the most innovation coming out of those 4 verticals? Where do you see, are you seeing any innovation perhaps in one vertical versus the other?
Now, those are pictures of our number of businesses and size of our business in those different verticals, not necessarily how much IoT they're doing. But to your question, I think inside I'm seeing most of the close to the ground really happening innovation coming in fire and safety. We really see the future as understanding all the data that surrounds the firefighter. And we really understand the fire process, right? We've got this other product that we built that is automating the flow of water from the hydrant all the way up to the nozzle, and really fascinating technology that makes it really. If you tried to I had this demo. It's unbelievable. If you try to add another line to a truck and switch the water source and not make the guys at the other end of the hose fly around all over the place, it's a science experiment to get all the valves and doohickeys right. But we've got it automated now. So you can just drag your hand across the screen and rebalance the flow. We see that as incredibly important because what that does is it frees up a firefighter, and it simplifies it, because we know that in the States especially, volunteer firefighters are about 90%, and it's really tough to get these folks to get training and all this complicated equipment. And so we're using this technology to make it much, much easier to use and actually free up hands, because no one's laying off firefighters. They need more hands to the task, and that's what we're doing. And so a lot of stuff around what impacts the availability of the equipment, as well as the effectiveness of the firefighter, that's where we're putting a lot of thought in. That group is going crazy. They're really innovative. The oil and gas and we're innovating in a lot of different ways, not necessarily all with information. Healthcare actually is innovating a ton on the physicality of everything. I talk about reducing these things to the size of a suitcase. We're doing things with microfluidics and optics that are just amazing, blow you away, cool stuff, physical science, dealing with liquids, stuff like that. And they're talking about data, but most of their innovation is coming on the physicalness of it. So there's a lot of cool innovation going on, but the digital stuff is currently more in the trucks type stuff.
Do you also get involved with sensors in the home or in businesses to help you know when a house is on fire? For instance, my neighbor's house burned down in such a short time, not the whole thing,
Yeah.
but with someone walking their dog that happened to, walking by, called 911 in order to stop the gas in time so that the whole thing didn't explode.
Right.
Otherwise it probably would have affected my house.
Yeah, so our core businesses are based really around the fire truck and the firefighter tools. When we announced this product at first, we had a lot of third parties that would maybe do those kind of products. We don't do anything consumer based at all, but nothing really in the home. It's all industrial. But when we talk about an ecosystem of data, we absolutely aspire to be the aggregator of information like that to be the source of better visibility. But we don't have any businesses that do that.
Nest has a couple.
That's a long conversation because our base of competition, we're very far away from IoT being a part of the base of our competition. Our competition is based on the uniqueness of our products, the highly engineered, the really niche markets, the way we innovate on those kind of things. To us, information is just the latest feature. It's just the latest feature, and there's going to be another one after that, and another one after that. That makes sense. Oh. Well, okay.
Super interesting talk. I was wondering, so we know everything that's connected is hackable.
Yep.
And you have a very decentralized corporate structure. How do you manage information security issues across what sounds like a lot of different cultures?
Extremely well. Anybody listening? Extremely well. Well, generally speaking, information security and the security of the network, the global network, that is one of the few things we absolutely centralize. Because we're public, because we're international, we got a number of businesses that sell to defense. So the requirements are high, and so we absolutely centralize that. When it comes to IoT, that stuff doesn't necessarily come into the corporate network, but we are being pulled in. We use that expertise, but we're also pulling in our vendors to answer that question, because the customer base absolutely over the past couple of years has evolved from, I'm going to throw hackable devices out because I'm scared and this is just FUD and I'm trying to not make this decision, to people that are actually very concerned about it, especially in the infrastructure stuff, the oil fields and gas and stuff. So there, it's a big search for standards. We're talking different places that purport to have. There are no really broad standards. A lot of folks say they have them, and it's a bit of a search for us. But we are that, anything having to do with security, that's one thing where we will gladly say we're centralizing. Can't fight that. Can't fight City Hall.
Oh, thanks. So I've been hearing a lot about the Industry 4.0.
Sure.
And you're my go-to guy for all sorts of emerging tech, forward-thinking stuff. Where does IoT fit into that, and what else is, and what is it?
The way I explain Industry 4.0 is that was Europe's term for the Internet of Things. And to me, it has evolved into, if somebody's talking about Industry 4.0, they're talking about using IoT to improve internal operations, right? I have a big plant and I have a bunch of pumps and I want to meter everything, gather data, and optimize my operations. To me, that's Industry 4.0. And there's lots of folks that can sell towards that. We, in a sense, would sell into that. I'm here, and like I said, I'm not doing any work IoT for operational IDEX. Conceptually, don't care, because there's 40 different manufacturing plants and everybody does things differently. But I will say that Industry 4.0 is a great way, applying IoT to your own operations is a great way to learn how all the Lego blocks work. So you can then turn around and learn how to do it for your customers. Does that help? Okay, cool. at Unexpo.
I have a quick question about very low, at the hardware level. Have you, and communications, has IDEX gotten involved in some of these very low data rate, very long range networks like LoRa or
Yeah.
Sigfox?
Yeah, I believe the folks that deal with, I've got another business that drops meters down sewers and counts, measures sewage. And they're looking at it, and I know the fire truck guys are looking at it too. But I'm not thinking of anything that's in massive production yet. Like, it's a big moving target.
Hey.
Okay.
Hey, Jim, nice talk, and
Thanks, Boss.
can really relate to the vernacular you have in the process and the voice of the customer. Anyways, I don't know if you can speak to this so much because it might be more of a secret, but looking at the results of, after you've done some of this automation, adding the sensors, have you guys hit it right on with the number of sensors? Have you found out you've over-engineered it, or have you under-engineered it and needed to rapidly add a few more items that maybe someone didn't realize? What's your experience over that?
Well, a couple of different ways to answer that question. Too early. Typically, the cost of goods for these things are insanely cheap, and so I basically tell them just triple the number of sensors. It's not that big of a deal. Even the communications and the data storage, it's nothing compared to the cost of goods of these products that we sell. And yeah, I think that's the short answer. Just censor some more. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's actually what a lot of people get all, excited about, is like, you're going to ruin my cost of goods. You're going to add $5 to my cost of goods. It's a $20,000 pump, and you're going to sell the availability of the data for hundreds of dollars. Stop it. So, was that it? Cool beans.
I think so. Hey,
thanks very much.
So, thank you, Jim. So, thanks, Jim. That was very, very insightful, very apropos for the Hub88 mission. Trying to help companies accelerate innovation, accelerate the use of technology, and that process is so important that you got understanding that process. So that was very helpful and very interesting. So we appreciate your time, and we thank Nokia again. Thank you all for coming. And there's still some snacks around. You can chat amongst yourselves a little bit longer, and hope to see you next month and some more Hub88 activities. Thank you.